Today it's December the 13th, and when everything is at its darkest, the Swedes are celebrating the light. Today is St. Lucy's Day, or as we call it, Lucia. The Lucia celebration is a mix of Christian and pagan traditions in the Nordic countries. That is, Norway, Finland, Denmark. But as usual, since I am Swedish, I will mostly talk about Sweden. Lucia is one of very few Catholic saints whose celebration have survived first the Protestant Reformation and so far also the secularization of society. But to be fair, as far back as we have reliable source material, the real connection between the celebrations in the north and the saint is highly questionable. It's said, though, that the red ribbon Lucia wears around her waist is a symbol of her martyrdom. As so many of our modern holiday traditions, our modern Lucia, wearing a crown of candles, probably originates from Germany and their tradition to dress a young girl as Christkind, baby Christ, with candles on her head as an aureola. The earliest source material we have on this white-dressed angelic Lucia is from 1764, but not until 1820 do we find the first one with a crown of candles. And that time the Lucia actually was a man. But our Lucia celebrations have lots of much older traditions. In medieval times, before the calendar reform, and as long as we still lived by the Julian calendar, winter solstice occurred on December 13th. That wasn't completely correct, but that was what people thought, and that thought stayed with them. Even after we had reformed to the Gregorian calendar, and the entire year had been modified so that the real winter solstice, like now, occurs between December the 21st and 22nd. But folk tradition is strong, and still a good bit into the 1900s people thought that Lucia was the longest night of the year. And I tell you, this time of the year is really dark here. That might be one reason for the popularity of the Lucia tradition here in the north. Not everyone enjoyed the night of Lucia, though. There are stories about people using the phrase "long as Lucia's night" as a description of something slow and tedious. When the day for Lucia came, there shouldn't be too much left of the preparations for Christmas. All the threshing, baking and the animal slaughter should be done by then. If they had a pig, the Lucia day was the day to slaughter it. The longest night of the year was a night of danger. Many supernatural powers were at work. The best thing was to stay indoors and awake. At this time, common people's idea of who the Christian Saint Lucia really had been was a bit fussy. At times she was portrayed as a kind and helping person, but quite often the description of her is truly bad. It might have been the similarity in the sound of the words Lucia and Lucifer that gave her this foul reputation. On her day she could bring hordes of evil spirits that were led by Lucifer himself. To make sure that they couldn't come in, you had to carefully close the hatch in the chimney. If you didn't, they would enter the house through the chimney. Is this perhaps something we recognize? Even though most children today don't even know what a chimney is for, they do know that it's a good opening for supernatural beings to enter their home. The modern Father Christmas is not a figure that we have in our historical traditions. In Swedish he is called Tomten, and with giving him that name we kind of mix the modern Father Christmas with another being called Tomten. This little figure had different names in different parts of the country. It also could be vette, nisse, vittra, and so on. This tomte is more similar to a gnome or an elf. He lived alongside the farmers and helped them with everything on the farm. As the people of the farm kept him happy, he did a really good job with it, but if they for some reason angered him, he could do real harm to them. There were many ways to anger the tomte, and people did what they could to keep him happy. The payment for all his work was to give him a big bowl of porridge on Christmas Eve. There also had to be a generous lump of butter in it. In some places he also could get some tobacco or schnapps. But without a Father Christmas, who brought presents to all the children? First of all, presents were not so much for children as for young people who gave things to someone they liked. They went to their homes, knocked heavily on the door, threw the gift inside and ran away. Not too fast though, since they kind of wanted to get caught, even if they wouldn't admit it. Because if they did, they were welcomed in and got something good to eat. Eventually this was mixed up with another tradition, the one with a Yule goat, so that he was the one bringing presents. Before that, he had mainly been someone used in different kinds of pranks. On Lucia, it was important to remember the animals of the farm. Everyone should have something special to eat, perhaps an extra portion of oats or the very best hay. And to each and every one of the animals you should say, "Now eat and now drink, and now thrive because today is Lucia." That would give the animals extra strength. It was also thought that the animals could speak during the Lucia night, but you were not supposed to listen in on them because that could be really unfortunate. There is a story of a man who hid in the barn and listened to his cow and his ox talking. The cow complained about her hard and tedious life, but the ox replied that things weren't so bad. The barn was warm and there was still some grain in the straw, so at least they had something to eat. When the farmer heard this, he decided to thresh the straw again and got quite a good batch out of it. Shortly after that, though, both the cow and the ox were dead. During almost all old holidays, young people, especially young men, often students, dressed up in different costumes, walked around the neighborhood and asked for treats. Begging was illegal in Sweden, but since this was connected to the holiday, people didn't see it as begging. Here we have several different traditions that have been mixed together. Some people did this on Lucia morning, singing and doing some pranks, but the bigger of these traditions originally was for December the 26th. That's St. Stephen's Day. On that day, the farmhands of different farms competed in barn cleaning. Preferably, they would finish their barn and also their neighbor's barn before the neighbors were awake. A good thing that day also was to let the horses drink in a spring or a stream a bit away from the farm. They raced the horses to the water since they thought that the first water was the best and would strengthen the horse the most. I doubt that this happened very far north though, since all open water in the north had gone frozen this time of the year. From these northern parts, the stories of St. Stephen's Day all have the horse as the most important figure. And of course, the horse was the farmer's true pride and joy, so it was richly decorated with bows and bells, while the youngsters dressed as beggars. The mix-up didn't end with Lucia and St. Stephen's Day. The older traditions for Epiphany, the 13th day after Christmas, that's January 6th, are also there. On this day, especially in towns with universities where theology was studied, students walked around town singing for gifts or some money. This was a way for them to finance further studies. These singers were called star singers or star boys. In the 1890s, when more official Lucia celebrations were introduced, they incorporated the St. Stephen and Epiphany traditions to Lucia. Around the turn of the century, 1900, a kind of national standard of the Lucia celebration spread through the country. And since then, these celebrations have spread to other countries. At least since World War II, Lucia traditionally is celebrated in the Swedish-speaking parts of Finland, in Norway and Denmark, and also in the areas of America where there are many Swedish descendants. In 1927, one of Sweden's biggest newspapers arranged a pageant to choose the official Lucia of Stockholm. That tradition spread fast all over the country, and since then, more or less every city, town and village chooses their official Lucia. The procession is called a Lucia train. Nowadays, Lucia is celebrated everywhere. And these are arranged in schools, preschools, different kinds of organizations, and in many workplaces. In the children's Lucia trains, we nowadays might find a wide range of characters. There are the traditional ones, Lucia, often more than one, since everyone can be what they want, her maids, a couple of star boys, one or more tomte, and a couple of gingerbread cookies. But I also have seen pictures of Darth Vader and, of course, a train. One of the best things about the Lucia celebration is the Fika, after the train's performance. Follow the link if you don't know what Fika is. Glögg, that's mulled and spiced wine, saffron buns and gingerbread cookies. A big thanks to all of these beautiful people who helped me make this Lucia special. I hope you learned something new today. See you soon, I hope. Bye!
Bye!